And black people can't afford to indulge rich white people's need to endlessly flagellate themselves. They just want prices to go down and good jobs and the police when you call them.
Well, if he's right, then why didn't people vote for the former prosecutor who actually had policy plans to help the working class?
Stop saying that Whoopi Goldberg getting yanked from The View right after she attacked me on The View is karma. There's no such thing as karma, sorry.
Bill Maher isn't holding back when it comes to criticizing what he perceives to be excessive woke viewpoints. His most recent concern, Goldberg, Whoopi. In a way, Whoopi prepared herself for this. Since 2022, she has experienced a series of embarrassing and contentious incidents, and Maher didn't merely make a remark. He went all out. Whoopi was left reeling from his incisive, methodical onslaught, which went beyond simple criticism. What specifically did she say this time that triggered him? And how did Maher's answer disturb the awakened culture's typical adherents? We have the whole tale for you, and I promise you it's an exciting one.
We have got to get past this endless, unforgiving, zero-tolerance mindset bent on punishing and disappearing anyone caught saying the wrong thing. The right response to speech you don't like is more speech.
Not for the best reasons. Whoopi Goldberg is making headlines again. She's fighting hard this time, but the reality she's dealing with isn't cooperating. You may recall how Sonny Hostin was criticized by Bill Maher for misrepresenting himself in our most recent video. Sonny apparently didn't want to deal with such criticism by herself. Whoopi is now taking over and is prepared to handle Maher on her own. She did not arrive in silence, to put it mildly. She arrived prepared for a brawl, as if she were entering a confrontation that no one had requested.
And black people can't afford to indulge rich white people's need to endlessly flagellate themselves. They just want prices to go down and good jobs and the police when you call them.
Well, if he's right, then why didn't people vote for the former prosecutor who actually had policy plans to help the working class?
This is timeless. When things become unpleasant, Whoopi Goldberg is the one who flips through every page of the woke playbook. She launches an offensive and uses a diversion when her case begins to falter. Bill Maher's argument was straightforward. A robust economy, decent jobs, and equitable policing are all things that many black Americans desire. Nothing contentious, that's all. Whoopi's reaction, though? She began discussing aiding working families and supporting a former prosecutor, which, to be honest, had nothing to do with Maher's remarks. It failed to connect. It was illogical. She seemed to be speculating in the hopes that something would land. To give you a spoiler, it didn't, and Bill Maher made sure to let her know it.
Tear down statues of Lincoln and get rid of the police. Just, no, it's not that I've gotten old, it's that your ideas are stupid.
Maher didn't hold back. He stated unequivocally that Whoopi's reasoning is flawed, which isn't shocking if you've watched The View recently. The show has devolved into a chaotic jumble, akin to a free-falling political talk show. Because it's so disorganized, people find it difficult to look away. There have always been strong, controversial viewpoints, but Whoopi and Sonny Hostin's genuinely unconventional viewpoints have elevated the conversation to a whole new level. Do you recall the time that Charlemagne the God appeared as a visitor? His expression was so bewildered that it was almost as if he had entered the wrong studio.
All of the criticism is valid because, Democrats stand on this moral high ground all the time and, they act so self-righteous. The reality is he didn't have to say anything in regards to, whether or not, his son wanted to be pardoned. He could have said, hey, man, I'm not focused on that right now.
Let's dissect it. No one is above the law, as President Joe Biden has frequently stated. However, he is currently under fire for pardoning his son, Hunter Biden, who was just convicted of corruption and related offenses. Equal justice isn't exactly exemplified by this, is it? The obvious inconsistency is being pointed out by critics. How can you talk about responsibility and fairness when your own kid leaves without facing any repercussions? Hunter received a clean pass despite the public's perception that his activities were very evident. Charlemagne the God stepped in at that point. He made the straightforward argument that you must live by the law if you are going to preach that it applies to everyone. It seems reasonable enough. Whoopi Goldberg, of course, put her own twist on it.
I'm gonna stop you for a second.
Uh-oh.
Only because you don't know that it was a lie. We don't know why he changed
You really think he just changed his mind over Thanksgiving weekend all of a
No,
sudden?
I'm gonna tell you what I think.
Okay. Yeah.
I think he changed his mind because he got sick of watching everybody else get over.
Whoopi then gave another moment that left everyone scratching their heads. This time, she asserted that President Biden's statement that no one is above the law was true. Indeed, it is. Ignore the plethora of comments and clips that show Trump stating just that. To her defense, in essence, ignoring the obvious, it was one of those instances where viewers questioned whether she was truly watching the same news as everyone else.
This nation is founded on the principle that there are no kings in America. Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law. Not even the President of the United States.
It was like hearing to someone argue that the sky isn't blue while standing outside on a clear day, watching Whoopi attempt to justify something so blatantly false. She was inconsistent in her logic. She would definitely be in the running if mental gymnastics were a sport, but she would most likely falter midway through due to her own reasoning. Charlemagne the God's face spoke for itself, and you could see it in real time. However, Whoopi continued. She also suggested that President Biden might have altered his stance because he was fed up with being outperformed. Charlemagne was completely stunned by that. He wasn't even sure how to react.
So I'm just gonna follow the straight and narrow always, because that's what's expected of Democrats.
But that's their fault. They're the ones that go out there and they stand on this moral high ground. They don't have to do that.
The true issue is that this so-called woke group is quick to criticize inappropriate behavior, but only when it originates from someone outside of their social circle. The fury abruptly fades when one of their own is in the news. Rather, we receive quiet, downplaying, or excuses. And with Whoopi and her co-hosts, that's precisely what occurred. As long as Charlemagne was present, they were able to avoid any significant opposition to the broadcast. However, Bill Maher didn't mince words once he learnt about it. He delivered one of his most incisive and straightforward takedowns in a long time, and this time it was successful.
You love to speak truth to power, and we always should, but you have completely lost the ability to speak truth to both.
It was perfectly summed up by Bill Maher. The so-called woke movement enjoys portraying themselves as defenders of justice and the truth, but it is now impossible to overlook their hypocrisy. Consider Hunter Biden's situation. Simply put, he was found guilty. However, he escapes with no serious repercussions because his father is the president. If it was someone else, they would be exposed and disciplined right away. When it's one of their own, though, all at once, the indignation vanishes and is dismissed. That was not tolerated by Maher, who exposed it as blatant hypocrisy. He's correct, too. Hunter isn't the only one involved. It's about a flawed system that upholds a different standard for everyone else while protecting the powerful. Maher's remarks struck a chord because they revealed what many people already sense, that this system's fairness is a myth. And what exacerbates it? He noted that the protection of such illusion is frequently aided by the mainstream media.
Was it appropriate to bury the Hunter Biden?
You're talking about the press doing that?
He's saying that's what they did, and that is what they did. They buried the Hunter Biden story before the election because they were like, we can't risk having the election thrown to Trump. We'll tell them after the election.
And we know for a fact that that's what they did?
Of course. You
no,
don't
but
follow
I'm
this.
saying you know for a fact that that's what they did. I don't know what they did.
I know, because you only watch MSNBC.
No, that's not true.
The majority of major news sources immediately went into damage management mode when the Hunter Biden story emerged. They attempted to defend President Biden by downplaying the issue, dismissing it as Russian disinformation, and throwing doubt on Trump's re-election rather than looking further. It wasn't nuanced. Voices that challenged the story were disregarded or marginalized. Whoopi Goldberg did the same on The View, dismissing the story as if it were unimportant. Maher, however, was not going to accept that. He chastised her outright for disregarding the facts as well as for standing up for the Bidens. He went point by point, challenging her explanations and revealing the apparent double standard for everyone to observe.
A Above any matters of politics or what's right or wrong, the one thing I know for sure about America is this. It's run by mean girls. Mean girls in the press and in politics and in life. And when they smell blood in the water, the lust to finish off a vulnerable person will never be denied.
Bill Maher was totally on the money and didn't hold back. Not only are the presenters of The View, particularly Whoopi Goldberg, promoting a progressive ideology, but they also silence anyone who disagrees with them. It's more about control than having a meaningful discourse. They criticize, ignore, and ridicule any voice that contradicts their story. Whoopi frequently dismisses opposing viewpoints as unworthy of consideration. Maher, however, was not intimidated by that. He took aim at them, pointing out that their purported activism frequently resembles bullying. He continues calling out the double standards and performative indignation for what they are, which is why he has become such a problem for them. In a field that is frequently crowded with rehashed talking points and biased opinions, his direct honesty is refreshing.